Hello everybody! We are in the UCLA garden called Mildred Mathias Garden, where I have spent many happy hours using this and other tools. And this was my first section called the East Stream Path. So now I'm moving so that the camera can see. This section of the path is canopied by this wonderful trees along the stream here, and that's why I picked it out for my section. And the other way is also canopied, shade, beautiful, wonderful shade. So you can see the leaves along the path, am I right? Okay, so I'm going to rake those, and it'll be before and after of kind of what I do in the garden every week and sometimes twice a week. Now, usually I'll have a mask on. That's the general idea. Of course, I do much more than that. And then an amazing thing happens after I'm done. The leaves start to fall on the path again. And I'm sure that some of you watching this will come up with the words to express what's happening other than entropy. Somebody shared entropy with me last night. So, and then it's job security for me. This is ruscus, this bush, which is 30 feet long and about 8 feet wide. And every fall, this happens to this bush, which is the magnolia and the other hardwoods drop their fun stuff on the bush. And for 8 or 10 years, it's been my job to fix that. So I'm going to show you how I fix that. First, you comb the top of the bush. And that gets a lot of the leaves. And then, I don't know if you can see that hole there, but you comb the top of the bush. Now, that got some of the leaves now, but I want to get all the leaves. Okay, so here's the coup d'etat, coup de grace. You put the rake in there. Now, ruscus is really strong, so I'm not breaking any branches. Can you see the difference? Presto changeo. It looks clean to me, at least the section that I did. And then I would go all the way down there and get all the rest of it. And yeah, it's highly aerobic. Cleaning the ruscus bush. Now let me show you this, if we can pick it up. This little red berry here. She has beautiful little red berries here and there. And these leaves are like holly, but not as bad. So sparrows make their nest in there. I haven't disturbed any active nests, but some of the old nests did come out years and years ago, and they're pretty neat, you know, sparrow nests. So sparrows use it for shelter, you know. And that'll be enough for this bush. So many happy hours are spent here. Now, in the garden, like I get exercise, selfless service, and beauty. It's a hell of a deal. And the garden gets to look better. And they don't have to pay me. I'm a volunteer. I've been a volunteer here 8 or 10 years. I don't know how long. And I've been a docent here 2 or 3 years. And there we are. And I love it. And sometimes I'll come twice a week if I need more exercise or if the garden needs me. And I always come once a week. And that's it for the Ruscus Bush talk. Dawn redwood. Dawn redwood, long thought to be extinct, found in China in the 40s by University of California people. I don't know how they found it because there was a war in China at that time, but they did. And they brought the seeds back, and they were distributed in 48, 49, and 50 to the various gardens around the U.S. And so from a seed, from a little seed like off of a pine cone, this happened in less than 67 years. And you can't see the top of this, but later we might show you the top of this. Now, it's still green. This isn't an evergreen, this is a conifer. It's not evergreen. This is actually a deciduous tree. Deciduous comes from the Latin word deciduo. That's approximately the word. It means to fall down. So, like right now, I don't know, can you see the leaves falling right now? But the tree has not turned brown yet, but it will. And it'll start at the top and come on down, and the neighbors may give us a phone call and say, could you cut down your dead tree so we don't have a fire hazard? And of course, in the spring, it'll become a green tree. So the director of the garden taught us when he was teaching us docents, there's always an exception in the plant kingdom, okay? And there is the example of the exception. Because we think conifer is an evergreen. No. And then there are evergreens that are not conifers. And we have those in Santa Monica along 20th Street, and they form a nice canopy along 20th Street, and along my street, which is 21st Street in Idaho. Same thing. Camphor trees are big with broad leaves, not with these kind of leaves, and they are evergreen, which is kind of wonderful that the leaves are always there on that tree. Okay. Redwood, an incredible building material. You probably know that. Fire resistant, mold resistant. If you go into a redwood forest, you'll see some trees that are burned in the middle up 40, 50, 60 feet. They're charred and they're still alive, because the redwood resists the fire. It's not fireproof, obviously, but it does resist fire, and it still is able to live with the inside burned out. And, there's 2 other kinds of redwoods. There's the gigantus redwood, which is in the Sierras. Those are the biggest trees in the world in terms of volume. And then there is the coast redwood called semperavens, that's the Latin name for it, Sequoia semperavens. Every plant in the world has a Latin name, and then they have some common names, but they have a Latin name so that people all around the world can say Sequoia semperavens, the California coast redwood, which is our state tree. And it is not the biggest tree in the world in terms of volume, but it is the tallest tree in the world in terms of height. So there's a tree in the redwood forest along the North California coast that is 379 feet tall. Now, a football field is 300 feet long. So if we laid that tree down, it would cover the entire football field plus another 79 feet. And there you go. That's Amazing how they get their water and nutrients up to the top branches. So, most people know that some of the redwoods are 2,000 years old and some of them may be almost 3,000 years old. So this redwood has grown to the height that it's at, which maybe we can show you later because we'll have to go way back to see how tall it is. In 67 years, this redwood has grown to this height. That gives you an example of the prolific nature of the redwoods, which is demonstrated in the enormous trees in our forests. This redwood used to be prevalent in North America throughout Western America until a few million years ago. I think 15 million years ago it started to go, and this redwood was thought to be extinct till they found them in China. And redwoods were throughout the world in the temperate zone that they could live in for millions of years. And then in the last few million years, they have receded to the clusters that they are in now, which is, as far as I know, California, Central California to Northern California. There's a few trees in Oregon. Oregon got a few redwoods. And then there's trees in China. And I'm sure there's trees in the arboretums throughout the United States. So we're on the west stream path now. The east stream path is right over there, and there's the stream, and there's big koi in the stream, and about 30 turtles, red-eared sliders, I think they're called. They're all the same kind. And there are a few crayfish in the stream, but they're rare. They're rare to see them. But I was here 2 or 3 years before I saw my first crayfish in the stream. I'm standing in front of the building block of Asia for centuries. Asia, millennium. Asia was built on this, bamboo. And they used bamboo for everything except for one thing. And I'm going to show you what that is. This is from southern Thailand, a teak leaf, T-E-A-K, and they use these as shingles, okay? And then the bamboo itself did everything else, the flooring, the walls, the framing, the binding. They stripped bamboo into strips and made it for binding when they didn't have nails. Now these days they would use nails. So think about this. I spent some time in Thailand. Wonderful place, wonderful people. This is how they lived for thousands and thousands of years in these, and then later, they got to fell the teak trees and make houses out of frames, and then later there was concrete available. But for thousands of years, this was it. Totally green. Kind of neat, huh? Completely green. Bamboo plus teak. And I have a picture of an enormous building made out of teak leaves. That is, the roof is made out of teak leaves, and some of the walls are made out of teak leaves. Now the other thing is that, believe it or not, bamboo is so strong that they use bamboo for scaffolding in Asia. I have a picture of about a 30-story building. It has scaffolding all the way up, and the scaffolding is nothing but bamboo. And I just think that's amazing. I don't know how they did that. And I'm going to put down my teak leaf now. And over at my house, we have fig trees behind the house. And I want to bring a fig leaf and show you what, because they always talk about a fig leaf, I'll show you the nice shape of a fig leaf. Bamboo, prodigious, just will take over an area if you let it. And it doesn't grow up from here, it grows up from the top. So this stays the same, unfortunately, with the people who are deluded into thinking writing on the bamboo has some kind of meaning. So that stays there, and the bamboo grows from the top. Okay, now I've been looking at, we edit the film as we go along. Now I've been looking at what I look like, and I have battery packs here, okay, and it's making me look fatter than I am. Now, I am fat, I don't mind telling you that, but I'm not this fat. Okay, now let me show you. You see that? Now, we had a longtime TV personality here on PBS called Neal. He would say something like this: "Hi, I'm Neal, and I am the dumbest Okie that you have ever met in California. But I have perseverance. And so I have made like 500 shows of beautiful California and gotten paid for it by PBS, KCET, and all that." And Neal would say, he would come up to something like this, and he'd have somebody who's showing us around the park, and she'd, "Now what is this?" Now, and then of course the person would say, "This is a table. This is what we call a square table." A square table. This is a square table. And what do you do with the square table? You put stuff on it. Am I right? And now, this is another part of the West Stream path. I do this path as well as the path in front of the bamboo. I'm going to walk down here now. I'm walking towards the bamboo. This is my third section. I got the East Stream path, the West Stream path. This is called the main road, and it goes that way as well. But from like where the shade starts to the other end where the stairs are, that's my third section. Of course, I'd have to have shade. So this is a beautiful, even more beautiful stretch. And in this stretch is the coastal redwood and several other plants of interest. But the main thing I want to show you is the difference between a wet dirt road or dirt path and a dry dirt road or dirt path. Now, this is one day of leaves or less, like what's happened here. So this road gets raked every 2 or 3 days. Here we are on the main road. Now, the whole thing about the garden is beauty, as well as it's a teaching garden. There's 4,000 plants here from around the world. But for most of us, and for me, the garden is about beauty. Now, I take it a step further because I work on the paths and the trails and the road. This is the main road. And the difference between the dry road and the damp road in terms of aesthetic nature is substantial. And I'm going to demonstrate that now by raking both areas, okay? And sometimes I do work this quickly. It's a sprint. I usually have a barrel, of course, and the leaves go into the barrel. I don't feel like I need to show you that. But what I do want to show you is this. If it was all the way wet, the damp section is much more beautiful than the dry section. And this is only a partial illustration of that. Now, I told you about the Sequoia sempervirens here it is, and there's that word, the Latin word, and that's the coast redwood. That's the name of the coast redwood. Throughout the garden we have brown signs saying usually the medicinal purposes of the plant, but in this case the commercial uses of the plant. Over here we have Bushman's poison. Bushman's poison. This is one of the reasons we tell children don't handle the leaves when you come here, because the leaves are toxic and will burn or damage their skin if they break them open, etc. This, of course, was used by Bushmen in Africa to tip their arrows with to inflict a fatal wound. For my English friends, here is an English yew tree, Y-E-W. This tree almost went extinct in Europe because this tree was used to make bow and arrows. And then gunpowder came along and this tree recovered because they switched weapons to gunpowder. But it's very flexible, and that's why they use it for bow and arrows. Now, here we have the brown sign, the medicinal purposes, anti-cancer. And it names the 3 types of cancers that it addresses. And then another thing Huel would do, are you getting this, Louie? That was one of his phrases. Are you getting this, Eric? Eric's my cameraman. Here's my trash cans. All the leaves would go in these 2 trash cans from my 3 areas.
Hi, Neal. I am going to ask you some questions on your video, and so I've been thinking a lot about it. So my first question is, it's something around like, you have been so, you've been located in a place that so many of us don't know for so many years, like the experience where you describe being close to death for so many years, and you've traveled that edge in a way I don't think that many people would have the courage to travel and keep the open heart that you have. And so my first question is, what's it like there? And then and there's a way that it seems to me like you've tapped into something while being there that's really deep. It can take you through experiences that just sound at times, to be honest, grueling. And again, you keep that open heart and you keep that vision. And so what's that like, that thing that you've tapped into? And what, if you had to say like one message from that place, what would it be? And then my last question is something around the garden and the love that you have for being in that garden and working that garden. And I thought maybe you could describe what it's like for you to be in there. Okay. I love you. Talk soon. Bye.
Well, I just listened to Nicole's questions, and there's 3 questions, and I'll just try to speak to whatever part of them I can speak to. Yes, being close to transition for several years. You know, cancer patients have an opportunity that other people don't have to. So I was talking with one of my best friends, a spiritual man, and I said, if this happens and this happens and this happens, I may die. This was 24 years ago. And he says, so what if you do die? I know that he wasn't being mean to me. He was setting me free from my fear of death. And the answer was, so what if you do die? And the answer to that is, I was fortunate to live in an ashram for several years in my 20s. And I feel like I had experiences there that showed me who and what I am, and that I am an eternal self and incapable of death, and I feel safe in that realization. So first of all, losing the fear of death is a great freedom. I urge any of you to try to get there, any of you who haven't gotten there. there is no death, really. There is no death. There's the appearance of death, and we certainly drop our bodies, but there is no death. And in the East, Buddhism, Hinduism, they teach reincarnation. We go from life to life, and that's what happens, in my view. That used to be in the Bible. The reincarnation chapters used to be in the Bible. They were taken out in 330. It used to be in the Bible. A lot of things used to be in the Bible. They're no longer in the Bible. Anyway, that's then. This is now. We go from life to life. And in the East, people know that they're going to suffer by going from life to life, and so they want to get off of that cycle, which is called getting off the wheel of birth.